Arrows. Everybody likes talking about arrows. Why are they so expensive? What are the different sizes? Do you have one that's going to fly just like the ones I had back in the early 90s? No, sir, I do not. Looking at it from a consumer standpoint, I can completely understand, especially for a new archer getting into the sport, how overwhelming and literally intimidating buying arrows can be because there's so many different brands, so many different options and series and spines between all those brands that yeah, it's a lot. Well, in this video right here, I would really like to hammer on the topic of different diameters, what you can expect them to come with, what you can get with them, GPI, spine, and yes, it is spine, it is not spline. I swear to God, I'm gonna get a t-shirt made. Different brands, different series, what you're getting, what you're not getting, and why do some cost more than others. Starting with the different brands and the similarities in what they offer. And the similarities are going to be the diameter of the arrows. You have a 6mm, 5mm, and 4mm are going to be your three most popular. One or two of the brands have a 6.5. There's a few brands out there that have a 3mm, but we're not going to get into that because your 6, 5, and 4 are by far going to be your most popular. Now, when you buy your first bow, or maybe you were gifted a bow, where'd my arrow go? I swear it's right here. If it was a snake, it'd have bit me by now. Oh, I moved it. Like I was saying, if you're going to buy your first bow, obviously you're going to want arrows, and stereotypically the price is going to have a lot to do with it because your wife is already pissed at you and me typically. So we want to keep the price point down, but we still want to give you something that's going to be quality and you're going to have fun. And why is my phone ringing? Good Lord, I swear we're going to get through this video. Hell, now my phone won't even turn on. Oh, now, dang it, now. Yep, it's turning on. Crap. Stereotypically, a shop's going to set you up, unless you're just flashing that Black American Express all over the place, they're typically going to set you up with a 6mm arrow because they're usually anywhere between $40 and $60 for a 6-pack. And that's pretty standard. Yes, you can get cheaper arrows off of Temu. I get it. But we're talking about companies that are actually here and in pro shops. Now, a 6mm arrow, once again, is going to be one of the biggest diameters. No, it's not massive. It's not like slinging tree trunks or anything like that. It's going to come typically with about a 20 to 24 grain aluminum insert that actually goes inside the arrow shaft and sticks out just a little bit, and obviously it's threaded for your field tips and broadhead so you can practice and hunt with it. Every arrow manufacturer has a relatively budget friendly 6mm arrow in that price point that I mentioned a few seconds ago. It just really honestly depends on what brand is more popular in that area that the shop is pushing. Something else that's going to determine the price point between a low, medium, and high, even on the exact same arrow, is going to be the straightness. When we're talking about straightness, we're talking about those three little digits with a decimal in front of it, which this one does not have. Maybe? No? Yep, nope, doesn't have it. You're going to have a 0.006, which is going to be the least consistency of carbon that you can purchase. That carbon arrow is going to be, it's going to do the job. If you're looking to shoot long distance and stack arrows in there really tight, you're probably not going to want to go that route in the beginning or later on in life, wherever you are in your archery career. Then you have a 0.005, some of them do, depending on the brand. And then you have a 0.003, and then a 0.001 is going to be your highest quality sorted straightness arrow that you can purchase. And I'll tell you a company to look at for a perfect example is Victory Archery. No, this isn't a sponsorship. They have a really good website and it makes it super simple. If you go on their website, you'll see that they have a V1, I think a V3, and a V6. The digit stands for the straightness, so a V6 is 006, V3 003, so on and so forth. And pretty much every arrow, majority of their arrows, I'm not gonna say every arrow, but the vast majority of their arrows that they sell, they offer in all three straightnesses, which are going to determine the total price at the end during checkout by a couple dollars. A lot of people will argue, and they're not necessarily wrong, that a 003 and a 001, there's really not that big of a difference, especially if you're spinning your own arrows, cutting them from both ends, you can get a 001 out of it, but that's another conversation. So keep in mind, anytime you're buying any diameter arrow, if you're wondering why you see 2 or 3 on the shelf that look identical, it's because they pretty much are, except for the straightness. Now, moving on from the 6mm to the 5mm, this is going to be just 1mm smaller. This arrow in particular has been a really hot topic. This is the Easton 5.0. Still waiting for Easton to ship me mine from before the beginning of the year. Actually, yeah, like November. Come on, Easton, get together. I need to sell some of these. The smaller you get in diameter, typically the more options there are for components. For example, this, and when I say components, let me back up, sorry. I'm mainly talking about the insert, even though components typically cover the insert and the knocks and all that good jazz, but I'm mainly talking about the inserts. This one in particular is going to come with the hit insert that Easton is so known for. I am personally not a huge fan of it, which is why I took a Black Eagle half out and put it on the front. And yes, I know Easton makes half outs, but I didn't have any at the store. And one of the similarities between all arrow manufacturers that they really don't like you to talk about is that some of the, obviously some of the half outs and components from one company will work on a totally different arrow company's arrow in general. Hence why every arrow manufacturer has 4, 5, and 6 millimeter, because they all work really great, and a lot of the half outs and inserts are going to be pretty much the same. Now, where they vary is aluminum, titanium, and the different grainages that are available. For example, these actually came from, I believe, a Black Eagle Black Eagle Rampage. This is one of the half outs that comes with that particular arrow. It's 55 grains. Now, Easton offers, I know, like a 25 grain aluminum somewhere in there, but they also have 55 grains. And depending on some more aftermarket companies, Ethics Archery is a great option there. They have a whole plethora of different half outs and inserts that you can get for just about any arrow and different weights, which we'll go down that rabbit hole later too. A 5 millimeter is typically going to cost more than a 6 millimeter. The smaller you get, the more expensive the arrows are, and typically the less options you have for straightness. Typically, not in every arrow's case, but like for example, the Black Eagle Rampages, I believe now they're only available in 001. They used to be available in 003, but they even discontinued that because, one, there's not that big of a difference. The dollar amount wasn't very justifiable for a consumer. And Easton's pretty much the same way. They have the match grades in these, and I don't know if they actually offer another straightness. They may, though. Don't quote me. Check their website. While we're on the topic of websites, please do not email me and ask me what the best arrow is, because there is no such thing as the best arrow. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 5 or 6 different arrow manufacturers that are doing very well across America. They all offer different GPIs, a little bit different components, similar, if not exactly the same millimeters like we're talking about. It all comes down to what your draw length is, what your draw weight is, and what you're going to shoot at. And that's the first 2 things I always ask people. And when they email and say, what's the best arrow for whitetail? Well, what's your draw length? What's your poundage? Because that's going to ultimately determine your spine, length arrow, and what I recommend for you based off of if you tell me you want more punch and kinetic energy, or do you want more speed? Last but not least, we're going to talk about a 4 millimeter arrow. And actually, nope, that's not the one we want to use. And no, this is not a sponsorship by Easton either. I know I've gotten 2 Eastons to 1 Carbon Express, but trust me, they're not giving me any money. They can't even get me my arrows on time. But a 4 millimeter arrow is going to be typically the smallest diameter and pretty much almost always the most expensive. A lot more work goes into a 4 millimeter and getting it to fly straight, getting it to be tough enough in order to handle the impact on a critter. And typically they're going to come with some kind of half out system that also sleeves over the carbon. So it's going to go inside the carbon and over the front to protect it. And this one in particular is about 55 grain. That's pretty standard, 50-55, depending on the company once again. If and when you ever go down the arrow rabbit hole, for one, just so you're aware, it's never ending. And 2, there is a plethora of different options between nocks, fletchings, wraps, half outs that you can get for almost any arrow out there. Even your 6 millimeter that just has the standard aluminum insert that typically comes with them. You can get brass inserts to replace those if you want more weight. Same thing like I was talking about earlier with the 5 millimeter. There's a plethora of options there, and the 4 millimeter is no exceptions. In fact, typically a 4 millimeter and 5 millimeter are going to have the most options as far as inserts and half outs go, just because, one, they are more premium, and I don't make the rules, that's just what they are, which if you look at the price tag on some of these, you'll understand why. You can switch it from an aluminum half out to a stainless steel. There's even titanium out there, and they're also different weights. Typically, you can get them obviously in the 50-55 grain, like I just said, 75 grain, 95, and 100. And then some companies like Ethics Archery, like I mentioned earlier, they're going to offer pretty much whatever weight you want. That was obviously a ton of information, and I get it once again from somebody who's new into the sport. What I just went over was very overwhelming, and to be honest with you, we really didn't even hardly scratch the surface. We're just barely getting our toes wet, people. A bow is just like the arrow, it's no better than the shooter. And what I mean by that is if you're somebody new into the sport, don't worry so much about getting the best of the best because it's only going to be able to perform as good as you can shoot. And typically, unless you're, just a born again Fred Bear, you're probably going to have to work on some form and some other stuff right off the rip. And not just don't worry about your equipment as much. Just worry about being safe, having the correct spine and correct length arrow. And once again, don't get a divorce over the sport because we want you to stay in it. So stay with some more budget friendly arrows in the beginning. Because let me go ahead and tell you something, homie. Once you go down this rabbit hole, there ain't no coming back. So now you guys kind of grasp the concept of why we ask the questions we do when you come in the shop, being a newer archer or somebody that's just switching from their old arrows in general. And it's not because we want to push one arrow on you or the other. It's because we want to be able to put you in the correct arrow based off of the information you're giving us and based off the specs that you have. I sincerely appreciate you guys and gals watching this video. If y'all have any questions or whatever you want to see in the next video, drop it in the comments below and don't forget to hit that little subscribe button.